Hello.
Just another nation. It is not just one of the family of nations. This is a nation with a great mission to perform for the benefit of liberty-loving people everywhere.
That we shall be as a city upon a hill.
These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of his country.
You've come to fight as free men. Free men you are. What will you do without freedom?
Proclaim liberty throughout all the land.
In one voice, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. You gotta fight for your right. Can you dig it?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another edition of Real News in this morning time. By the way, stuff is getting very strange. Are we doing something? We'll see what's happening here, man. Somebody in Facebook land, let me know actually what you're seeing on your screen, because I have no idea what you're actually looking at right now. Let me know how the audio is going. If you can't tell already by now, my boy Shine is out there doing legitimate work right now. So all the technical stuff on the technical side of this is the first time I'm doing this, man. Give me 2 seconds here. Let me pause and just see what you're actually hearing. Hey, it sounds all right. It sounds like we're going. Got me. I think I did it. She's so proud of me. She's so proud of me for getting this program running. All right, look, yo, we're doing a legitimate show here. This is a legitimate thing. I know what I'm doing, all right? I'm poised. I'm polished. I know how to roll with the punches. Hey, my name is Mr. Henry, by the way. Welcome back to another edition of Real News. Yes, that's correct. Running solo this morning. David Shine Thompson's out there doing what he does with Americans for Prosperity. Well, I can't really tell you what he's doing. Some clandestine activity, but he's working today. That's what's going on. He's just working. He's doing the good work. He's doing God's work, if you will. And it's just me running solo today. So if there's some technical glitches, then whatever. We're going to have to roll with those punches. How's everybody doing out there this morning? Greatest audience in the nation appreciation segment. Let me know what you're thankful for. You want to know what I'm thankful for? I'm thankful for my boy Shine here, being here, usually running the tech side. That's what the production looks so great. It's because of him. Hey, sounding good back there, Gabby? Everything good? She'll let me know as we're going along. Greatest audience in the nation appreciation segment. Let me know how you're doing, what you're thankful for, what you're appreciative of this morning, what you need encouragement with, any of that type of stuff. As I'm getting this cursor off the screen. What articles are you reading right now? What are you paying attention to? What's on the tip of your mind? There's just so much stuff going on right now. It's hard to figure out what to focus on, what not to focus on, what's important, what's not important, all that stuff. Sherry said in Facebook, Let's see. She said, I'm like you and Shine. It's like, yeah, that's right. Shine's like my Daniel Blanchett. Yeah, exactly. Sort of Lost without him type thing. You know what I mean? You just hope the show goes on in some capacity at all. But I want to know the answer to that question this morning. I won't have an opportunity to pull up the unified chat, but I'll at least be running off of Facebook and YouTube as much as I possibly can. I'm using two different screens here, but let me know where you're at, what you're reading, what articles you're into, what books you're into right now. Are y'all doing the more novel thing right now? Or are you just, are you reading novels, that is, or are you actually just like, are you reading some other books? My brother just turned me on to The Coddling of the American Mind. That stuff is blowing my mind. I think it's extremely pertinent for what's going on right now. Let me just dive into some of these headlines, though, because starting with the local story that I really want to bring everyone's attention to. I've been slightly teasing this over the last couple of weeks here, but I really just want to go full long into it right now and sincerely ask for the audience help on this one. So last night, we had our first meeting. By we, I mean Americans for Prosperity and a few other coalition leaders around the area. We had our first meeting pertaining to what to do about the 34% property tax increase that just passed in the metro area here in Nashville. And a couple of weeks ago, about a month ago, rather, I ran across this guy named Jim Roberts here in the Nashville area. And he's a local-based attorney. He's also working on a lot of the fairgrounds cases. If you're in Nashville, you know what that fairgrounds case means. He brought something to my attention. You can go to For Good Government, by the way, forgoodgovernment.com, the number 4goodgovernment.com to follow along with what we're talking about. But he has a petition rolling out right now. It's a charter amendment, okay? It's a referendum to get this on the ballot. And it would do a number of different issues. And Jim brought this to my attention and said, hey, look, I mean, this property tax increase was pushed during a time when we can least handle it. When Davidson County can least handle it. It was pushed during a time also where, technically what ended up happening is just terrible spending decisions of the past are finally catching up with metro government. And you're kind of left with two decisions here of like, how much do you slash or do you raise taxes somewhere else? And it's like, you got to raise taxes, I suppose. Now, the interesting thing was that it was a 32% property tax increase that was originally proposed, and then they actually ended up passing a 34% property tax increase. And when I said a second ago, well, you got to raise taxes, I suppose, was there nothing else that could have been done? There's nothing else that could have been cut. There's no other decisions that could have been made. I think the obvious answer to that is yes. And we talked about some of that last night. We talked a little bit about last night that the stats that I was hearing when my wife and I moved to the Franklin area is that in Nashville, about 100 individuals per day were moving to Nashville. There's an outrageous amount of revenue increase over the past couple of years without raising property taxes, just because of the number of individuals that were moving in already. So to the point at hand, if you want to follow along at forgoodgovernment.com, you can. What I would like to ask right now, though, is just the first couple of minutes of the portion of this show. And then I'll hit some of the comment section here. I think this issue in particular is one, if not the only one right now, that could hopefully jump across all different types of demographics. Ideological spectrum, the worldviews. I mean, it doesn't matter your party affiliation. This type of stuff affects everybody. We were talking about this last night as well. This property tax increase is obviously against commercial properties, it's against residential properties. They hit you if you're a Democrat, it hit you if you're a Republican. It doesn't matter. Either way you look at it, your price is going up. You don't even have to be a property owner. If you're a renter, the property owners or inevitably the landlords are going to inevitably pass that price increase along to you as the renter. It is going to affect everyone in Davidson County. And I would be so bold as to predict across the rest of the state here in Tennessee. You may see some other cities doing the same. Let me tell you what this petition does, and then let me ask one more time to help me make this an entire movement beyond just the petition. So here's what it does, okay? This petition, getting it on the ballot, the voted would be on December 5th. Now, what we need is 10%. The number of signatures we need is 10% of the overall vote on any given year. Now, it's interesting because we won't know that total until about August 7th, August 8th, but usually it's anywhere between 43 to 45,000, which means we need about 4,500 signatures. I don't want to tease this too much, but we're going to smash that. We're going to absolutely decimate the number of signatures that we need. But I want to go further than that. I want to go more than that. I want to go beyond that. If we get this thing on the ballot on December 5th, we just need 51% of the vote to do these things right here. Here's what it would do. It would limit property tax increases. Property tax rates, here's the language, shall not be increased more than 2% per year after January 1st, 2020. Yes, that date is correct. It's a weird retroactive application, but the property tax increase doesn't actually go into effect until January of next year. So it would limit it all the way back to 2% of this year. You can't increase more than 2% every year unless you get it on the referendum, unless you get the people's approval of it, which is a very interesting thing because I don't know who's going to vote a property tax on themselves, but so it limits property tax increase unless the people say, yes, you can do that. It also has a portion there saying no giveaway of our parks, greenways, or public lands. This has a little bit to do with sort of a soccer stadium, if you will, here in the Middle Tennessee area. Here's the language. No giveaway of our parks, greenways, or public lands. No part of a park, greenway, public land, or other real property shall be given away or conveyed without 31 votes of the Metro Council. 31 votes of the Metro Council in favor. Transfers of interest in real property shall only be at a fair market value or greater based on an independent appraisal. A voter referendum shall be required for transfers of interest in real property valued over $5 million and for leases exceeding 20 years. Now, this was made aware to me last night. The MLS situation going on, it has a little bit more to do with some of the stuff I'm about to talk about in a second. But the MLS situation, I did not realize is dynamically different than any other professional sport. And I see the Facebook comments going here in just a second. I'll get back to that. I'm having to switch between a bunch of screens, so I can't hit that live time. But the MLS situation, so NFL, for example, you have individual owners, except for with the Packers. The Packers, I believe, are the only NFL team that is owned in the sense of a shareholder type situation. The fans own the team. Every other situation in the NFL, you have individual owners and you have billionaires that just buy out teams and go crazy with them. The MLS is just a single entity. It's just the MLS. And when you get an MLS team, you just get the right to host MLS games in your city. That's all it is. You don't like own the team or anything. It's not like the Nashville Soccer Club. It's not technically the Nashville Soccer Club. It could be the Nashville Soccer Club today, but it as easily could just transfer somewhere else tomorrow because the MLS just like wants to say, I don't know, we'd prefer if another city had a right to play games instead. That's all. You're just basically opting into the right or the permission to host MLS games, which is a fairly absurd concept. But it paints even a larger picture on some of these things we're talking about. So if we get into a deal with the MLS team here, or if I don't know, we get into some other deal here and we're putting on the backs of our taxpayers to say, hey, they want to build an umpteen $1 million stadium or hundreds of millions of dollars, however many millions of dollars it's going to cost. And they want you guys, the taxpayers of Knoxville, the taxpayers of Nashville, the taxpayers of Memphis, the taxpayers of whoever's in Tennessee, they want you all to pay for it by some type of issuance of a bond or a tax incentive or some type of payment in lieu of taxes. Or I don't know, man, whatever vehicle they're going to use. I don't pretend to understand this at a high level. But if that's the way that it's being pitched for this MLS deal in particular, they're basically saying like, hey, man, let's get the MLS team in here now. But there's no real guarantee that they even have to stick around. So at some point in the future, if somebody in the board of directors in the MLS just says, like, you know what, the Nashville market's not really working too well for us. Let's skip town and jump over there to Portland. I think they already have a team. But you know what I'm saying? Like, they can do that. They can just do that. And then the rest of the citizens are just left, I don't know, picking up the slack, paying the difference. Issuance of bonds is another thing, by the way. All bonds issued or guaranteed after January 1st, 2020, exceeding $15 million for a specific project must be approved by voter referendum. One more time, all bonds issued or guaranteed after January 1st, 2020, exceeding $15 million for a specific project must be approved by voter referendum. Now, this is, of course, excluding, construction of educational classrooms, public libraries, public health buildings, things like that. Hey, Gabi, by the way, tell me if that audio is doing all right, yeah? Yeah, it sounds good? I don't know what the levels are. Failed promises, by the way, is the next one. If a professional sports team, here's what I was mentioning a second ago. Probably should have went on that rant during this time. It is what it is. Failed promises. If a professional sports team leaves Nashville or ceases playing professional games for more than 24 months, all facilities and related commercial development shall revert to the people, and all related contracts shall be terminated, including land leases from the Nashville Fairgrounds. And lastly here, open records. A lot of this stuff is being done, dare I say, behind closed doors. A lot of these deals are being made, dare I say, behind closed doors. This last portion here, in particular, open records. Metro records shall be open to the public. Citizens are entitled to keep a close eye on Metro's actions and entitled to inspect its books and records for free. For free. Inspect the books and records for free, consistent with the Tennessee Open Records Act. Public instrumentalities under Title VII receiving more than $250,000 per year in Metro taxpayer dollars or benefits agree to be bound by this amendment, and such entities refusing to provide public records shall be barred from receiving public funds and liable for treble the citizens' damages, including attorney's fees. That one is basically just saying like, hey man, if you're going to use our money, you better show us how you're using our money. Like if you're gonna be able to to tax us stuff, we have some trackable documentation. So let me make this final pitch here. I'll hit some Facebook comments as well. The final pitch going into this, as I just went through this, 4goodgovernment.com, the number 4goodgovernment.com. If you could share that with as many people as you possibly know, and I get this, the petition itself, the signature drive itself is only applicable, meaning we can only turn in signatures. The only signatures that count are from registered voters in Davidson County. But hear me out for a second. I want to turn this thing into a movement itself. I want to turn this into something that goes beyond just a property tax increase here in Nashville. Send a clear message to the entire state that Tennesseans are demanding proper stewardship of our tax dollars and increased transparency with how that stuff is being done. Now, some of my libertarian friends that listen to the show is like, go one further, man. Just stop it all together. I hear you. But you also know me as a constitutional incrementalist, man. I'm trying to get the wins where I can see them. Work with me, help you type thing, right? I want this to go beyond the property tax issue because, again, last night at this meeting, we were also talking about just a few years ago, if not last year, my memory escapes me a little bit, but very recently, within the last 2 years, Nashville was dealing with the transit tax issue. This would have put in some type of, rail system or something like that. And it would have made overnight, the city of Nashville would have turned into the city that has the largest sales tax in the entire nation. It's not an exaggeration. I mean, the largest sales tax in the entire nation overnight, that would have been Nashville. We had a transit tax last time. It's a property tax increase this time. And I absolutely guarantee you, if I was a betting man, I'd say I don't know, one might even go so far as to presume that in the future, Nashville or some other city in Tennessee is probably going to be dealing with a similar situation. That's the point I'm making. I want this to be a call to action beyond just the 4goodgovernment.com, a call to action beyond just this current property tax increase. I want this to touch all the way up to Knoxville. I want people hearing about it in Memphis, man. I want to see that 4goodgovernment.com being shared literally everywhere just to bring exposure to the idea of calm down for a second. You're using our money. It's during a time when we can least afford the ability to be able to do so. Just take a beat for a minute, man. If you're going to do anything, give it back to the people. Goodness gracious. So share this website with anyone you know, even those that are not in Davidson County, because they might know someone that's in Davidson County to help us get some signatures. And if you're in the Nashville area, one more appeal. Eric just said in Facebook, by the way, hotel tax is the highest. Yeah, absolutely. One more appeal if you're living in the Middle Tennessee area, or if you know anybody that is or something like that. We have a whole sort of game plan set up for how to approach getting these signatures that we need. We're going to be posting up at early voting locations over probably the next 2 to 3 weeks, starting on Friday of this week. If you want to be involved in that, if you want to help us out, if you want to sit at one of these booths or want to just get people to sign, have a conversation with them, educate them about the issue, just keep people aware, informed, reach out to me directly, reach out to the Facebook, Real News Radio, hit message us directly, whatever you want to do there. We're also going to be doing some call banks. We're going to be doing door knocking. We got texting campaigns coming up, man. I'm going to be doing a bunch of stuff on the digital side. If you want to be interviewed about any of this stuff, if you just hate the issue in general and want to put together a 30-second little snippet of here's the reason why I hate property taxes increase, and send that to me, I will throw that over all of our social media pages, man. I'm talking the AFP Tennessee main page, the affiliate pages, the Real News page, whatever. If you want to help out, by all means, jump on board. Let me hit some of these Facebook comments, by the way. I said, my dog's hair in my face. Jessica said, someone just shared the PA Kids for Cash scam video on my page, and it made me thankful my life wasn't ruined like so many of my friends. So that's in my mind today. Jessica, if you're still watching, by the way, I hate to say this, but I'm actually not familiar with the PA Kids for Cash scam video. Anybody else on Facebook? You heard about that guy? PA Kids for Cash, No? No, I don't know what that is. Jessica, let me know what that is. Send me a message or fill us in the comment section. That sounds very interesting. Sherry said in Facebook, I got pissed about the recent local story and about how mask mandates are not unconstitutional. They asked some geek at UT, Briggs. In case y'all don't know, he's the senator who wants to ban raw milk and his forced vaccinations, not the kind of guy who cares much about the Constitution. She's talking about Senator Briggs. They call him Colonel Briggs up there. He's a heart surgeon. Sherry knows what she's talking about. That's as much as I'll say about that. Lest I implicate myself in something I don't want to. Sherry knows what she's talking about. Read the comment. Sherry went on to say, any Republican who tells you that they care about private property rights and isn't out there lobbying to get rid of property tax is a fraud. Man. Yeah, that's the truth also. There's no property ownership in the U.S. Stop freaking out about increases and freak out about how you can't own property in the first place. Now, see, okay, this is what I'm saying. When I said a second ago that my libertarian, and I didn't include anarcho-capitalist friends, but that's what I was going to. When the people that listen to this program, they'll take it to its logical conclusion and say, this is the core of the problem. This is the root of the problem. This is where the rot is coming in, if you will. I mean, everyone's worried about the symptoms over here, but unless you take care of the festering mold itself, then you're really never going to solve any of this stuff. I assume that's what Sherry's talking about. And what she means is that, yes, it's bad to have a property tax increase. But for people that like own their homes and are still paying property taxes, somebody like, do you really own your home then? I think what Cher's getting to is just the concept of property taxes in general is something that we should definitely take a look at for Sherry. And for a lot of people listening to this program, say, don't just take a look at it. Just be done with it. Get rid of it. Stop the nonsense. It's trash anyways. Now, when I called myself a constitutional incrementalist a second ago, that's where I said, I hope anyways, from time to time, how people could see my role in whatever this grand experiment is that we're doing with Real News, with people that know me personally, with any of this other stuff. When I call myself a constitutional incrementalist, what I mean is like I lean so hard libertarian that I would possibly go so far as to call myself a minarchist. And I think I could reasonably get away with that. But I've also been, like, let's be for real, I've also been indoctrinated into the system that is through law school. But I think I could be a very unique tool for a lot of y'all. Right? I think I could be a very unique tool to see where we can angle at getting wins to slowly chip away. So if we could do this in like two scales, right? Y'all get the wins over here to solve the actual core of the problem. Keep people educated up on it. Keep people knowing what's going on. Constantly start fighting for legislation. I'll keep chipping away at the other end here. And then eventually we'll meet somewhere in the middle. And it'll be a fantastic day. But I do think we need allies on both sides in this. Anyways, that rant just to say that Sherry's absolutely 100% correct. While I'm sitting here, harping on about a 34% property tax, pushing it back down to 2% property tax. She's just saying, like, why is it there to begin with? All right. Eric said, thought that was just your beard. The piece I took away a second ago, thought that was just my beard. And she says, okay, yeah, important distinction. I do this a lot. Sherry says, once again, ANCAPs are philosophical libertarians. There you go. Spend your energies on real things instead of increments. Hey, man, well, somebody's got to be doing the increments. You know what I mean? Let's go on to the next story here. By the way, realnewsradio.live, realnewsradio.live. This is where you're going to find all the real news related things. Justice Ginsburg hospitalized with fever and chills. Now, Justice Ginsburg is virtually indestructible. I mean, that lady has fought, man, name something. She's fought it. Everything from injustice to cancer to whatever she's going through right now. Here's the story from the New York Post. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg was admitted to the hospital Tuesday after experiencing fever and chills, her office said. Justice Ginsburg was admitted to Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore early this morning for treatment of possible infection. She was initially evaluated at a different hospital, brought over to Johns Hopkins. She underwent procedure at Johns Hopkins this afternoon to clean out a bile duct stent that was placed there last August. Justice, they say, is now resting comfortably and will stay in the hospital for a few days to recover. Now, she's 87 years old. She was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2009 after a decade after she had survived a battle with colon cancer. I'm telling you, man, like this lady is just, she is a fighter. Now, you may disagree with her opinions, and I disagree with virtually every opinion she's ever pinned down. But she knows the law. She knows what she's talking about. Supreme Court justice, for goodness sake, man. And she's a fighter. Keep her in your prayers. I just wanted to bring that up, to keep her in your prayers, because I'm telling you right now, in spite of the fact of losing a Supreme Court justice right now, which doing so during an election year could cause yet another controversy on top of the cesspool that we're all just waiting around in right now. Prayers for Justice Ginsburg, in all sincerity. She's a fighter. Hey, let's go into this story. All right, so Trump tweeted out some of the following here as I'm pulling this up on my screen. This morning, for those that follow Trump's Twitter account, probably not everybody. I mean, whatever. This is Trump's tweet this morning. Wow, New York Times is under siege. The real reason that the real reason is because it's become fake news. They never covered me correctly. They blew it. People are fleeing a total mess. Now you can see the wonderful Twitter responses here. And you don't even necessarily have to go through and read all of them if you want to. You can pause them if you want to. But I mean, just look at some of the things, right? Some of the memes that are being put back and forth. I mean, this is basically American discourse right now. I mean, this is exactly what it is. It's just pro-meme, anti-meme, pro-meme, anti-meme. Like, there's no dialogue going on here. I mean, this is just absurdity. This is absolute absurdity. It's just like, I don't know, man. You may as well pander to this mob, right? Why not? Anyways, I was wondering, so what in the world is Trump tweeting about? Is the New York Times just like the next episode? Is this the next thing that he's trying to take a hit at? Is this the next publication that's some headline that came out that I didn't know about? Well, it turns out one of the opinion journalists, a centrist named Barry Weiss, and whether she's a centrist or not, I don't know. I don't really necessarily care. She was brought into the New York Times to give centrist opinions. I don't know, somehow give some type of balance to the way the New York Times is reporting on things. And she tendered her resignation yesterday through what they're calling a scathing letter. Now, let me give you just a quick update on the story here, and then I'll actually read her letter in just a second. Because her letter brings up a few decent points that it's just, I don't know, man. Frankly speaking, I'm still trying to figure out where I'm coming from in a lot of this stuff. And in a very, very strange way, it actually ties into Joe Jorgensen's tweet about the whole Black Lives Matter thing that we covered yesterday. I'm still trying to figure out that. I had a conversation with the lady last night. Actually, some of y'all might know her, Kimberly Edwards. She's the lady that started the Free TN movement. She's also one of the ladies that's helping us work on this property tax petition. Now, she was telling me last night as well that she's been following that same controversy with Joe Jorgensen. And she actually sort of dealt with a similar struggle from the very beginning, even during the Free Tennessee stuff and everything else. And that similar struggle being of trying to figure out how to bifurcate or make a distinction between the organization and the movement. And it's interesting because she was saying it's not even just in Black Lives Matter. They were at least implying in the sense of it. It was sort of a larger scale type thing. But anyways, the point being is that I think there's other people out there that are struggling to figure out, or at least making the noticeable distinction between a movement and an organization. I'm still stuck in that sense of like, it's just a convoluted idea to me. I can't quite get my head around it yet. And I'm not trying to be like, I don't know, overly complex here. I promise you I'm not. I'm just trying to understand. If someone points me to Nike and then you say that they're marching under the Nike banner, but it's not actually Nike, so don't associate me with Colin Kaepernick. I can't quite follow it yet. Do you know what I'm saying? But there's very clearly something else going on here. And I'll make that comparison back here in just a second. Back to Barry Weiss, though. Here's the quick TLDR, and then I'll actually read her resignation letter and hopefully connect all this back together. We'll see how it goes. But let's listen to Fox Business, of all places, give you a rundown on this. Here we go.
New York Times opinion editor Barry Weiss today tore into the Times for bullying and suppression of speech in her scorching resignation letter announcing she's quitting. Barry Weiss now says that the Times is now dominated by far left-wing ideologues who are ruining the newspaper. They're bullying and suppressing centrists and those with differences of opinion, and that the Times is now run by a Twitter mob mentality. Let's talk about it with Fox News contributor Jason Chaffetz. It's great to have you back on. She said they called her, quote, a Nazi and a racist for being a centrist. Your reaction to this?
This was about as a scathing of a letter as you can possibly imagine. If you want to read a way to go out in a blaze of glory, read this letter, because what she exposes with her firsthand knowledge there at the New York Times is about as scathing as it gets, that it was not about a collective discovery of truth. It was all about fulfilling this agenda that some of them had, and it's not a true newspaper anymore. The old gray lady, as they call the newspaper, it's just not. It's not the news. It's a glorified newsletter to radical people on the left.
So this guy, sort of starts rambling and struggling to figure out what point he's even trying to make, which I think is part of the problem right now. See, someone like Fox News is going to see a centrist leaving New York Times and think like, okay, now's the time to pounce. Now's the time to chomp. Now we can finally prove that the New York Times is, I don't know, is what we always said it was. It's a fake news stuff. And I really don't know what this actual story is, man, because I don't follow Barry Weiss. I just know that, like, Twitter is telling me one thing about Barry Weiss, and Barry Weiss is telling me something totally different about New York Times. Twitter is telling me that Barry Weiss is not considered at all a centrist by any sense of the word. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. Who knows, man? But they're saying she was never considered a centrist. Now she's apparently the pitch of the proposal for why she left is because she was going on there wanting to publish arguably like straight up white supremacist type articles or something like that. Now that seems entirely far-fetched. And it just constantly perpetuates this frustration that I have that we're just stuck in this terrible thing right now where I can't get a sense of nuance from any of it. I can't get a sense of reality from any of it. I did see Andrew Yang, though. Andrew Yang said something about this. Now, if Andrew Yang is getting in on the deal, I don't know. Maybe I should just listen to Andrew Yang instead of Twitter. This is what Yang said. If someone like Barry Weiss feels like she can't do her job can't do her best work at the New York Times, they should make some real changes over there. Well, okay, maybe that reorients my thoughts a little bit, right? Barry Weiss is leaving. Fox News is telling me that it's because she was shut down because New York Times has a very clear agenda that's liberally driven and that they want to always knock President Trump and that you can't get away with anything. And then I think back like, well, that is kind of true. I mean, the whole Tom Cotton controversy where Tom Cotton was somehow wrote a terrible piece in the, about how, I don't know, what was the Insurrection Act or something. I don't know what it was about, man. It was using troops to shut down violence, whatever it was. Doesn't matter. It was a senator, man. It was Senator Cotton. And some op-ed that they published there all of a sudden had to be issued a retraction because of how offensive it was or something. And I totally disagree. I totally disagree with everything Tom Cotton said. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe there's some validity to this. And Andrew Yang saying that there's some validity to it. But read like some of these responses. So nobody agrees with Yang either, at least not Twitter. And this is what I'm saying, man. Like, is maybe the bigger story that I'm going after here is like, is these comment sections indicative at all of how people are actually thinking? Like, are we dealing with actual human beings here? And I'm not saying like in a bot sense. I'm saying in a philosophical sense. Are we actually dealing with Joe or Jeff or Jonathan or are these real people, or is this some like idealized version of how they would like to see themselves? Is this like a keyboard warrior sort of filtration system where there's like, man, wouldn't it be cool? Blah, 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 blah. I mean, they're not pseudonyms, don't get me wrong. But you do tend to be far more bold on the other side of this screen than you would in someone's face, right? So I just don't know, like, where are people actually standing? Here's some of the responses. So Andrew Yang says, Barry Weiss is correct. There's a problem in the New York Times. Joe says, she's not a journalist, just a pro-war propagandist. Watch her fumble around, blah, blah, blah. This is another demonstration of why we should never elect novices as the president. What a garbage take. Talking about Andrew Yang running for president was a garbage. We shouldn't elect him as a president because if you had the audacity, the gall to say something like Barry Weiss is probably correct in her assessment of the problems over the New York Times, then you certainly are not qualified to be a president. Someone, Jonathan says, why do we need to ensure that all newsrooms are safe spaces for reactionaries? Oh, yeah, someone says, hey, I agree with Andrew, so we got one. Oh, but now we're back to it. New York Times needs work, but you lost a lot of credibility on the left for promoting. See, like, this is what I'm saying, dude. Like, so why is she so anti-Palestine? She needs to. So, like, every single thing on Andrew Yang's feed. Look, I don't follow Andrew Yang. I presume the majority of people that do follow him agree with him. This is what I'm saying. Like, I just don't know how to get a read, a pulse on any of this stuff anymore. I mean, is this how people actually think? Let me hit some Facebook comments real quick here before I actually read her resignation letter so y'all can get a sense of this for yourselves. So here we go. Jessica said, keyboard warrior, that's perfect. Yeah. Corporate press, Sherry said, the corporate press is the enemy of the people. Dude, like 100%, man. Let me finish her statement. She said, Sherry Voluntary says the corporate warrior, it's corporate press is the enemy of the people. I'm surprised that people are still surprised by how devious, disgusting, and agenda-driven they are. Man, I'm telling you, man, 100%. And I don't mean to get so overly excited about this, but I'm not trying to be too bombastic either when I bring this up. But when Trump comes out there from time to time and says that the press is the enemy of the people. It seems like it's axiomatic. Like people should just understand this on its face. It's true. I mean, a polling opinion would support this. Most polling opinions would say in the aggregate sense that the overwhelming majority of Americans do not trust American media. But definitely, man, over the last couple of months here, I have just lost it. I have absolutely lost it. And I'm sure Terry's tearing her hair out right now saying yeah, I've been telling you for years. But look, this is not news to most people, but to me in particular, I'm telling y'all, especially with the way that some of this COVID-19 stuff has been covered, especially with the way, it's just it vacillates on any given day. It's a problem. Now all of a sudden it's not a problem. With the way that anything's been covered in the Trump administration, with the way we just seemingly gloss over major problems, with the way that now all of a sudden, Republicans are allowed to no longer be fiscally conservatives because we're running a $3.7 trillion deficit this year alone. That's a single year number, by the way, just so you'll realize. The $3.7 trillion deficit. Now, yes, a lot of this had to do with the bailouts. I get it, understandable. But we were still running massive numbers, record-breaking numbers prior to that. I think there's no accountability on any level, anywhere, all of it. Eric said, does anyone even Mockingbird? Right. Right. Eric also said it's interesting that dummy old me has had the same opinion about the New York Times for some time now. Okay. So that's the general consensus of the real newsroom, right? I love this. This is awesome. Eric's basically saying we've all been there for a long time. You don't have to prove this to us. You would not say, I don't know all the details, but my instincts tell me Weiss is probably not the bad guy here. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm gonna save Sherry's comments on the Jorgensen thing here for just a second. Let me just read to you, and I'll share my Evernote screen with y'all here too, because I've cut out some of the sections. It's a long little whatever. Barry Weiss's resignation letter. I'll hit just some of the high notes here so you can get a sense as to what she's talking about. Here it is. She says, it is with sadness that I write to tell you that I am resigning from the New York Times. I joined the paper with gratitude and optimism 3 years ago. I was hired with the goal of bringing in voices. If you wonder why I'm pausing, I realize that I just shared this Evernote screen, and I also don't know. I haven't looked in a while at these categories I have over here, and I'm wondering, do I have any kind of embarrassing categories that I'm just showing out to the world? That's exactly why I'm pausing. Let's get back into it. I'll stand up for whatever's on my Evernote account. She says, I was hired with the goal of bringing in voices that would not otherwise appear in your pages. First-time writers, centrists, conservatives, and others who would not naturally think of the Times as their home. The reason for this effort was clear. The paper's failure to anticipate the outcome of the 2016 election meant that it didn't have a firm grasp on the country it covers. Now, that's an overwhelming understatement, which is a terrible way to phrase that. It's a massive understatement. When she says that the New York Times failed to predict the 2016 election, what she really means is on the morning of the election, the New York Times had Hillary Clinton's chances of winning at 97%. That's not just a failed prediction. That is something else entirely. Going forward, she said, Dean Banquet and others have admitted as much on various occasions. The priority in opinion was to help redress the critical shortcoming. Basically, she's setting this whole thing up to say, in 2016, y'all realized you had a problem, okay? And you realized you needed to reassess. I'm sure I know how these things go. At some top level, somebody in the orchestration or some of the structure, at some of the top level New York Times is dude, how did we get this so wrong? And somebody else in the boardroom says, I don't know, man, but maybe we need to start taking some opinions from the other side because we're looking a little bit less credible than we ever have been before. So as they're saying that, okay, so we'll ping back and forth. So what do we do? I don't know. We'll bring in some conservatives. Well, let's not go crazy here, man. We ain't full on conservatives because Trump's about to be president. There's no telling what he would be able to do with that. Well, okay, let's make him centrist. All right, cool. Grab Barry Weiss. So there was a purpose behind this because they got it so dead wrong and they lost credibility. Nobody was taking them seriously anymore. They were looking like a joke, man, like an absolute joke. They were being used as Republican fodder for I told you so, meme-worthy fodder. I'm talking literally putting together compilations on YouTube videos with screenshots of New York Times, 97% chance, along with the Young Turks just failure compilation. I've seen these videos. I'm sure that's what the boardroom conversations were. So they said, hey, let's fix the situation, right? She goes on to say, but the lessons that ought to have followed the elections, lessons about the importance of understanding other Americans, the necessity of resisting tribalism, and the centrality of free exchange of ideas to a democratic society, have not been learned. Instead, a new consensus has emerged in the press, but perhaps especially at this paper. And the truth isn't a process of collective discovery, but an orthodoxy already known to an enlightened few whose job is to inform everyone else. Dude, that's just, yeah, bleh, bleh. Man, that's just like, that's all the wrong reasons, right? Emerged in the press. The truth is only known by a certain few, man. It's preach class stuff, right? It's preach class stuff. Now, this is where I've highlighted it here because this is where she gets in the controversy that made me think this morning of like, all right, so what is Twitter? What is Twitter to y'all? Maybe this is a personal thing. Let me pause real quick. This might just be a personal thing. I'll be totally honest about this vulnerability moment, if you will. I tend to gauge sort of as like a political barometer, a sociological barometer sometimes. I tend to gauge how people react to certain things based upon their Twitter and YouTube accounts or whatever else, because I thought at one point it was just like, I don't know, unadulterated opinion just spewed across the internet. I assumed the keyboard warriors through the filtration process would just be willing to say like whatever they felt, like the most extreme version of whatever they felt. Which is arguably what is happening. And I thought like those versions of extremes, from extreme right to extreme left, could give me some sense as to like, okay, this is the worst that they're thinking, this is the worst that they're thinking, so the truth might be somewhere in the middle here. But I didn't realize, dude, like when all of it, when the entirety of it, when 100% of it just becomes those extremes, it's difficult to get a sense again as to what that reference point is. And I think that's what I've lost. I think that's what we've all lost, is that reference point. I was totally honest with the audience yesterday. Like I'm in a weird spot here, y'all. I am. Politically speaking, I'm in a weird spot. I'm not necessarily in a weird spot philosophically speaking. Well, no, I sort of am too, because like I know what I think to be true, and I know what truth is, and I feel like I've studied it in an epistemological sense for a very long time or whatever else, but I don't know what the reference point is for y'all. I don't know what the reference point is for anybody else that I'm talking to anymore. Is what she says about Twitter. She says, Twitter is not the masthead of the New York Times. It doesn't lead everything, right? It's not the polar star. It's not what we were guided by necessarily. But she says Twitter has become the ultimate editor. That's problematic. As the ethics and mores of that platform have become those of the paper itself is increasingly becoming a kind of performance space. Stories are chosen and told in a way to satisfy the narrowest of audiences, rather than to allow a curious public to read about the world and then draw their own conclusions. I was always taught that the journalists were charged with writing the first rough draft of history. Now, history itself is, I think what she's saying, man, is the same thing that happened to me is now happening to everybody, like I just explained to y'all. I think it's happening to everybody at an individual level, and then we have sort of this diffusion of responsibility. It's not my problem to take care of. It'll be somebody else's problem. Somebody else's problem. It's like, it's not going to be a problem if I buy into this one particular thing, because it's not going to be that much of a problem. Now, all of a sudden, the entirety of the New York Times is doing exactly what I do with myself. That is, they are attempting to pander to a very small segment of the population, thinking that small segment of the population is representative of the entirety of everybody, because after all, that small segment of the population that they have has the most followers of everyone else. And followers means consent. Right? I mean, if you're following somebody on social media somewhere, you have to agree with 100% of everything they say. I mean, guaranteed, everyone that's listening to me talk right now agrees with 100% of everything that I've ever said in my entire life, right? Come on, man. But that's what's happening. I mean, that's what's happening. I think the New York Times, as Barry Weiss is saying, is taking this approach to where, like, okay, we basically are catering to a collective nature of tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people, because the small segment of followers that we're catering to, the small segment of Twitter users that we're catering to, has an outrageous number of followers. And you get lost up in this thing, man, thinking that you're doing something righteous. She goes on to say, my own forays into wrongthink have made me the subject of constant bullying by colleagues who disagree with my views. They've called me a Nazi and a racist. And I've learned to brush off comments about how I'm, quote, writing about the Jews again. Several colleagues perceive me to be friendly. We were coworkers. My work and my character are openly demeaned on company-wide Slack channels where masthead editors regularly weigh in. There Some coworkers insist that I need to be rooted out of the company. If it's to be truly inclusive, she says, then I need to be rooted out of the company. While others post emojis with axes next to my name. Still, other New York Times employees publicly smear me as a liar and a bigot on Twitter with no fear that harassing me will be met with any appropriate action. Now, what she's talking about appropriate action, I presume, is something unlawful discrimination, hostile work environment, those types of things. And I don't know, man, like at the end of all this, maybe I have this wrong too. Maybe I have this take wrong. I just don't know. I have no clue who Bari Weiss is. I haven't read a lot of her stuff. I do know what the New York Times is, man. She left the New York Times. New York Times didn't fire her, so I guess the approach could be like, okay, so she didn't do something controversial enough that the New York Times would get rid of her. She concludes this entire thing by saying, for these young writers and editors, there's one conclusion. The previous paragraph, she talked about young people coming into journalism. Here's some things you need to know. She says, for these young writers and editors, there's one conclusion. As places like the Times and other once great journalistic institutions betray their standards and lose sight of their principles, America still hungers for news that is accurate, opinions that are vital, and debate that is sincere. I feel like I need to read that one more time, man. Americans still hunger for news that is accurate, opinions that are vital, and debate that is sincere. I hear from these people every day, quote, as independent press is not a liberal ideal or a progressive ideal or a democratic ideal. It's an American ideal. This is what the New York Times said just a few years ago. And she, Bari Weiss, says, I couldn't agree more. America is a great country that deserves a great newspaper. I don't know, man. Let me get y'all's take on this. Let me see where y'all are coming from with this. Does anybody... It's like New York Times. Like, all right, so whatever. Eric says, for me, it's more than just intellectual understanding, but an understanding that intellectualism, the modern era, is being smothered. Oh, another comment came in. Being smothered by emotionalism. I've heard many intellectual arguments that are really just emotional panderings twisted with mental gymnastics. To justify the emotions is juvenile and dangerous. And Shine's actually calling me on my personal phone. Shine, if you're listening to this thing, by the way, go ahead and call me on that Google Voice number if you don't know what it is. I'll pull it up right now. He may be trying to get on the show because he might have an opinion he wants to give us on this or something like that. Shine, if you can hear me out there somewhere, you're trying to get in touch with me. This number, 615-807-0619, 615-807-0619. I'll throw it out to the rest of the people, too. If you want to give your comments on any of this stuff, give me a call. That number, 615-807-0619. I don't know have the technical know-how to throw it up on the screen, or else I'd do it here for you. But if you want to call in, let me know your opinion. Let me know that. Getting back to Eric's comment here. He said that emotionalism is sort of taking over. That's his real problem. It's not the intellectual dishonesty necessarily, but it's being smothered by emotionalism. I've heard many intellectual arguments that are really just emotional panderings twisted with mental gymnastics to justify the emotions. Yeah, that's 100% true, right? It's juvenile and dangerous. That's a good choice of words, Eric. Bro, for real. It's juvenile and dangerous, man. It's not just disingenuous. It's not just dishonest. It's not just misleading. It's dangerous. I don't think Eric's saying like what the New York Times is doing or Bari Weiss. I think he's just making a more generalized statement right now that being manipulative with information that you know to be untrue is a dangerous game to play. Cherry says, Barry is correct. It's all fear-driven, and the squeaky wheel are really loud. Yes, they are very loud right now. The left bullying people like that for so long have caused the right to begin practicing. Sorry, to cause the right to begin participating in this madness as well. Dude, that's... Yeah, give me a second. Cause the right to start participation in this madness as well, so that you now have no discourse. You only have sides that will give no consideration to the validity of any of the other side's arguments. I like 100%. You want to know why I played this video the other day of like that dude in New York City, right outside of Trump Tower, throwing that red paint on the Black Lives Matter sign? I think one thing I was trying to do is just paint the juxtaposition of exactly what Sherry just said is going on right now. Not only are we not having discourse right now, we're to a situation where it's just like, okay, you're going to tear my statues down, so I'm going to throw paint on your signs. I mean, that's what's happening. And I am getting a call from David Sean Thompson, I believe, right now. Let me bring him on. Hello, this is Grant Henry. You're on with Real News. Who am I talking to here? Oh, what's up, buddy? I thought when I picked this up, I thought it said, hey, this is Ben. And I was like, it better not be a work call. Someone's going to get embarrassed real quick. What's up, Shine? How you doing, buddy? Oh, well, yeah, I got to eat that one.
So that something like Trump wouldn't take them by surprise in the future. So she ended up covering like Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, a lot of the IDW types. And in fact, I'd say especially now that she's quit with the New York Times, she might be an honorary intellectual dark web member.
Honorary.
If that kind of gives you, you know about the IDW?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so like she's like on the same level now as like David Rubin, Joe Rogan in the future. So she ended up covering like Joe Rogan. That's where she is in Jordan Peterson, a lot of the IDW types. And in fact, I'd say especially now that she's quit with the New York Times, she might be an honorary intellectual dark web member.
Honorary.
If that kind of gives you, you know about the IDW?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Can you hear me, Grant? Yeah, so like she's like on the same level now as like David Rubin, Joe Rogan in the future. So she ended up covering like Joe Rogan, where she is in Jordan Peterson, a lot of the IDW types. And that kind of gives you know about the IDW?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Can you hear me, Grant? Yeah, so like she's like on the same level now as like David Rubin, Joe Rogan in the future. So she ended up covering like Joe Rogan, where she is.
All right. Hey, I'm not sure what's going on there. That was totally terrible. Hey, man, it's live programming, y'all. I have no idea I have no idea what happened to Shine's call. I had no idea what happened to my audio right there. I had no idea what y'all are even watching. This is a crazy situation, man. Sorry, Shine. Sorry, everybody. I had an internet lag and everything just shut me off there. Well, that made for a terrible 5 minutes of programming. It is what it is. It's live stuff, man. When Shine's on the road, you get the best I have to offer, which is just it's gold. It's so good. Oh my gosh. Hey, let me tell you this story real quick, all right? As my internet's freaking out, man, and one of the reasons why I was afraid to show you my Evernote account before is because I just built this computer and I got a bunch of nerd stuff that I saved over there, and I spent so much money into trying to do all this stuff properly just to realize like I don't really know what I'm doing, man. It's a whole category of this computer build that's sitting in front of me. I reached out to Daniel for it and Zach out in Knoxville. They helped me put the things together and kind of dove into it. And it's running, it's working, but I also realized like, man, I'm way in over my head and I just don't know what this nerd culture is, man. And it's a weird way to segue into like, I thought I knew what some culture was. I thought I knew what politics was. I thought I knew what truth was to some extent. I still do. Absolutely. But my little niece came to me about a month or so back and said, hey, I want to interview you. She has a YouTube channel. She actually has a YouTube channel that has more followers than I do. There are more followers than Real News does, which is just fantastic. But she came to me and said, hey, I want to interview you on my YouTube channel. She does cool. She does little comedy skits here and there, and which is super funny. Go check her out. Oh, I don't know if I should tell you. It's good. It's good. But she does little comedy skits here and there. She does like little instruction videos too of, how to not to procrastinate. I mean, the stuff is just like way beyond her age. I mean, it's the comprehension level is and the wisdom is just like, it's too much for me to get my head around, right? No, I mean, I'll put it this way. When I was 13, 14, 15 years old, there was no way I was doing the caliber of stuff that she's doing right now. It is beyond impressive. So she comes to me and says, hey, I have this YouTube channel. I was like, yeah, I know. It's got more followers and more views than mine does. You want to fight about it type thing. But she said, I want to interview you for when you're going through news. How do you know what truth was? How do you know what truth is when you're reading a headline, an article? You do it every single day. And she didn't present it to me this way. She's super nice about it. One of the kindest individuals I've ever known. But she came to me and said, hey, when you're reading through news articles, how do you know what's truth and what's not truth? I'd like for you to talk about that on my program. And I was like, dude, I don't necessarily know. Like, I know what to be truth ultimately in a metaphysical sense and in a physical sense. All y'all know that I constantly fall back on my Christian worldview. And that's because I believe it to be the most logically cohesive worldview that has ever been presented in a philosophical sense throughout all of human history. And that's fine. You can take away the metaphysical claims from Christianity if you want to. Even the founding fathers, in a deistic sense, still believed the same thing. As far as a logically cohesive worldview from beginning to end, how to live your best life and be the best person, they also agree with that premise as well. So I know that to be true. But as far as presenting like Fox News over CNN or something else like that, I don't know, dude. I get lost in the fray even before any of this stuff started setting out. I look at this headline here from Forbes.com, $2,000 a day. $2,000 a day fine for obstructing coronavirus contact tracing. I'm like, I know the law. I have a fairly decent grasp, I suppose, better than an average individual might or something like that of what the law is and what subpoenas are and that you can get fined for subpoenas. So now you were saying that what ended up happening in the story, if you want to know, I'll show the headline as I'm talking about it. What ended up happening in this story is they had, somebody was exposed to coronavirus. And as they were exposed to coronavirus, they started doing all these, interviews or whatever else. As they were doing these interviews, some people didn't want to be interviewed about it. They didn't want to be interviewed about who they saw or when they saw them or when they had contact with them or anything else. So they just refused to. The people that were doing the contact tracing said, well, you can't refuse to talk to us. You can't refuse to answer questions. You can't refuse to tell us who you were around when you were around them. The 8 different party goers at a party of 100 plus people. That's what the story is. 100 people gathered in the Rockland County. 8 of them came down with COVID. They wanted to interview the other people to do contact tracing to see who else might have been exposed. Well, they refused to be interviewed. Like, I don't want them in. And even if they were interviewed, 60% of these people that the story ends up saying, 60% of them just straight up lied. Let's see if I can find that point of the article. Dude, ads, right? There it is. Sadly, New York City and other places that have been embraced contact tracing have struggled with this execution. In New York City, less than half of city residents who've tested positive or were presumed positive provided information to contact tracers. In Massachusetts, only 60% were responding. Louisiana, less than 50% are responding. So now what they're doing to correct this situation, I suppose, is, if you will, is they're just subpoenaing these people. They're just like, okay, well, if you don't come, I'm going to put you in jail. Like, if you don't come answer questions about who you saw at a party and how close you were to a person that tested positive at a party, I'm going to put you in jail, or I'm going to fine you $2,000 a day. Instead of tolerating the party goers' selfish refusal to cooperate, the Rockland County upped the ante, issuing subpoenas. Those who did not comply and share what they knew by the following day would face a fine of $2,000 per day. And I suppose this is legal. I mean, part of what I'm saying, I just don't know. I mean, in any other technical legal sense, I suppose somebody would be doing something about this if it were illegal. It's the men of the law that are doing this. I know in any other sense, if you refuse to cooperate and comply with a subpoena, you can get fined. I suppose if this is a legal subpoena, then, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is what's going on in my head right now. And the conclusion right here, man, the conclusion is basically Rockland County subpoena and threat of $2,000 fine. Well, it worked well because what ended up happening is that it works well. The rest of the country should adopt equal measures. American lives depend on it. And I think it's that final portion that's really selling people to fear, right? It's the American lives depend on it. Like, don't get me wrong, man. I get it. Like, I'm a self-proclaimed professed hypochondriac. Like, I get it. I'm as fearful of health-related situations, possibly, arguably, more than anybody else, as much as anybody else. But to drive some opinion or some edict or government mandate or coercion based upon other people's fear is the quintessential definition of what I know to be wrong. So what he's talking about it being effective is this headline here, this opening paragraph. Officials in New York's Rockland County recently got aggressive about contact tracing, issuing subpoenas to 8 partygoers who refused to cooperate with tracking efforts. If the 8 had failed to comply, they would have been subject to fines of $2,000 a day. Well, however, within 24 hours, all 8 acquiesced, didn't they? Signaling that the threat of a monetary fine may be an effective health policy tool to mitigate the spread of coronavirus. This is Forbes, by the way. So I say one more time, like, I don't know, man. What is truth? How do you pull something out? You're going to say that's wrong? Yeah, I think most people would. When my niece comes to me, and this is what she's talking about, okay? In a situation like this, when you're trying to properly parse through what's truth and what's not truth, what's correct and what's incorrect, what do you know to be true? Well, I say, like, that's a patently wrong thing that Forbes just told you. That's an inherently incorrect thing there. That is rife with problems. How else could I describe to tell you that is not the proper role of government? I don't know. How much more articulate do I need to be with this? I'm asking y'all, right? But then at the very bottom of that paragraph, man, the very bottom of the entire article, Forbes conveniently or calculated, puts in there saying, well, you know, it's going to save lives. So are you saying you're arguing against saving lives, Mr. Henry? And now you're stuck in the conundrum of truth, aren't you? There's that paradox, blah, blah, blah. Sherry said legality and morality are 2 totally different things, right? No one should be able to compel you to speak. Bob says it's all about resonance. Eric says, y'all are awesome. This statement is the bee's knees. Oh, you're responding to something Sherry said. I don't know what Sherry that was. Oh, Sherry said, some of us have the talent, Grant. We shouldn't know how to do all the techie crap. Yeah, that's true. She's commenting on where I had to kick my boy Sean off a second ago because of tech failures on my side. Internet went out. It just started freezing stuff, and I freaked out and flipped out. All right, and so let me end with this too. All right, so I thought I had a decent grasp on what politics was in America. And turns out last night that in Alabama, and this isn't surprising to a lot of y'all, and I know a lot of y'all are going to say he's a legitimate candidate, which he is. Okay, granted, sure. But just follow me for a second. Tommy Tuberville won the Republican primary against Jeff Sessions last night. Now pause for a second. It's argued because no one liked Jeff Sessions, and Tuberville might have been the only other option. Or it might be because I haven't listened to a single thing Tuberville said yet. It might be because Tuberville is a legitimate political candidate, knows exactly what he's talking about. He's highly qualified, maybe not in a political sense, but he's certainly qualified in a leadership sense. Let's be for real for that. And Trump did break the paradigm. He did break that mold, set a new paradigm for what is considered a politician now, right? Like there's no such thing as the necessity for previous political experience. It's just like, can you somehow paint yourself as your leadership qualities are going to be applicable and transferable into this new job? Well, Tuberville did that. If you don't know, Tommy Tuberville was the Auburn football coach. Not one of the absolute greats of all time, but he was a fantastic coach. As far as coaches go, some might disagree with that. Tommy Tuberville won the election last night, the primary. So once I start thinking I know what's going on in politics, you're like, I don't know. And that's okay. That may be a one-off. All right. Granted, that might be a one-off. But then I come across this story about after passing an Amazon tax in Seattle, this councilwoman over there, and you all know who I'm talking about. Kasama Sawant. She went on this sort of unhinged rant where she threatens to seize control of a Fortune 500 company and overthrow their racist, sexist, violent, blah, 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 blah. Let me end the program with this here. I'll play this thing. My wife actually showed me this clip last night. I'm telling you, everybody in the Real News family helps prep for this show. I'll play this clip real quick. You guys pay attention. Let me know what you think afterwards. I'd love to get some comments. And again, keep this in the context of like, I'm trying to figure out what truth is. I'm trying to figure out where people are. I'm trying to figure out what I like. I thought for at least a little while that like, hold on, we don't have any. We got Bernie Sanders out there that's sort of, espousing democratic socialism. And it's always pitched and couched in these terms by Bernie Sanders supporters that democratic socialism is not actual socialism. That's their words, what they have said. That's how they've described it. I'm not when I go out there and say that the Green New Deal is basically government control of the means of energy production, there's always these rebuttals or retorts of like, no, it's not. No, it's not. For nobody's ever just like straight up embraced. Well, yeah, that's actually, it's true. It is. Yeah. And that's what we're advocating for. Like no politician has come out yet and said like, okay, the Green New Deal is straight up the government of the United States taking control of the entirety of energy production, taking control of the entire production of commodities, of goods, of anything else. Like that's what we're going for. Nobody's come out and just blatantly, openly said this stuff before. We've started getting a lot closer over the last couple of days here. I know Rashida Tlaib had heard a little rant that I'm sure a lot of y'all have been following along. And here's a city council member out in the Seattle area. Listen to what she has to say. Hopefully I'm sharing sound.
I have a message for Jeff Bezos and his class. If you attempt again to overturn the Amazon tax, working people will go all out in the thousands to defeat you. And we will not stop there, because you see, we are fighting for far more than this tax. We are preparing the ground for a different kind of society. And if you, Jeff Bezos, want to drive that process forward by lashing out against us in our modest demands, then so be it, because we are coming for you and your rotten system. We are coming to dismantle this deeply oppressive, racist, sexist, violent, utterly bankrupt system of capitalism, this police state. We cannot and will not stop until we overthrow it and replace it with a world based instead on solidarity, genuine democracy, and equality, a socialist world. Thank you.
A socialist world.
I have a message for Jeff Bezos.
She's got another message for Jeff Bezos. I don't know, man. I will willingly admit right now, I'm 6 minutes over the normal program in this show, but I will willingly admit right now that I'm maybe blowing this out of proportion. I have no problem admitting that, because that's just like I've already admitted before. I don't know what the reference point is anymore. I frankly don't know where I fall on the spectrum. I don't know what y'all think of me, honestly. I don't know. If someone were to come up to you on the street right now and ask, like, hey, you watch that real news program? What are those guys like? Like, what do they believe in? I don't know what y'all would say. I don't know. I honestly don't know how I present myself sometimes in this program, because I am just like y'all at this point. I think the one point of commonality that we all have is that we all just don't have a point of commonality, which is a vicious cycle to be stuck in. And I don't know if y'all could hear that. The volume was a little bit low, but I don't know. It's the first time. Could you hear it all right? Yeah, Gabby says she could hear it all right. It's the first time I've heard in politics, at least in a very long time, if not in my lifetime for sure, of just like an open, straight up presentation. Like, no, what we're here to do is replace your system with socialism. Like that's straight up. And maybe she's just the first one that's being honest about it. I think that's what's actually going on. Let's be for real. She's just the first one that's been straight up honest about what's happening, because and maybe I should respect her for her honesty. Like I disagree with everything she's saying, but at least she's just giving it to me straight up, right? Now, granted, this is like the kook. This is the Seattle councilwoman that led protesters to the mayor's doorsteps, man. This is the councilwoman that's just like, I don't know, it's basically like the fire starter, the spawn point of a lot of this stuff. She's the one that led people to the mayor's doorsteps so that a lot of these Antifa protesters wrote this on the mayor's doorsteps. Fear and loathing in Seattle. No justice, no sleep, B word. We'll be back every day. That was left on Mayor Jenny Durkin's home after the most recent protest against her. So those that did blah, blah, promise they'll be back. That's her doing. That's her stuff. Okay, so she's not just complicit in this stuff. Like she's the creator of a lot of it. Let me hit some of these Facebook comments on the way out, though, man, because I'd love to know how y'all feel about this. Am I taking this lady too far? I just, again, keep this in mind that the whole thing is couched in this idea of just like everybody. There's such a lack of understanding where now truth. The Coalition for Reason is at an all-time low currently. And the ability to discern and decipher truth properly is something that is vitally important. And I'm grasping. It's slowly slipping even from me, man. Like I don't know what is and is not anymore. And yet I do. And that's the thing. If you do know what is to be truth and you do know what is to be true, then what I'm really saying through all this is that you have to stand on that harder now than you ever have before. And what's most uncomfortable about that is that you really have to open up and be willing to deal with the repercussions. That's what's so uncomfortable about admitting. That's what I've been trying to string this entire thing out into. Where I'm really at right now is if I'm being totally vulnerable, I'm a little bit fearful of the ramifications of me just coming on here and saying what I believe to be true. And what I mean by that is the ramifications like, yeah, I'll get shut down. Yeah, I might, I might get shut down and kicked off Facebook. We might get kicked off YouTube. We're not making monetary. We're not monetizing this anyway. So what does that matter, right? Well, okay, we still got Mixer and we still got Twitch. Okay, that might shut me down as well. We can still do it on our own program. We can still just an audio podcast. I'm getting the message out there. But more importantly, man, it's like, okay, the social ostracism that might come along with somebody that just dares to disagree with me, or I dare to disagree with someone else, or losing friends or family, or I don't know, man. Something I've said being taken out of context or something. The fear of the ramifications of truth itself but see, that's what I'm saying, man. Like ultimately, if anyone gives into that fear even slightly, if we start to even self-censor for a second, this slow, deadly slope that becomes of just a slippery thing that you cannot grasp back once you give that inch. People always say like you give an inch, they'll take a mile type thing. Well, okay, that's true. But what you never really focus on is that when you give that inch, you can't get that inch back. So when they give an inch, they'll take a mile, sure. But you always, the underlying presumption for me has always been like, well, eventually if the tides swing back again, we become more conservative and the Overton window shifts back again properly and blah, 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 blah. Then maybe we can get ourselves at some point, man, like progress being progress, what it is for the sake of progress alone, you can never get and reattain that aspect of truth back yet again. Once you've given it up, you've given it up, man. So I'm making a call today. I'm making a call today as I'm sitting here struggling with this, as I'm coming to enlightenments and revelations on my own, man. Hold me accountable. Hold me accountable when I start slipping into something that I know to be untrue, when I start trying to pander to some audience that doesn't even listen to this program, when I start to try to pander out of the fear that I have, it's about as vulnerable as I've been with the audience in a very long time, out of the fear that I have of losing my job with this company that I work for now. Dude, I would do this job for free. That's how much I love what I'm doing. They wouldn't have to. I was doing stuff that I'm doing now for free prior to coming and working for this company that I'm working for. I was showing up to political events. I was doing rallies. I was talking about this stuff. I was signing signatures. I was doing petitions. Now someone's paying me to do it, man. I have a fear of losing this job. I have a fear of not being able to provide for my wife. I have a fear of having to move in with my parents or something. I don't know. When I start slipping into that fear, y'all, like that's what this community is about. Holding me accountable for that trash, for that nonsense of not going down. Because I know y'all are all feeling a very similar version of this as well. Maybe in your own right. Maybe it's a conversation with you having your friends or something. I don't know. Maybe you just don't want to upset someone. Maybe you don't want to offend someone. But at the same time, you feel yourself like that little small itch inside that you just can't quite get on your back. Like something's wrong, something's off, man. We're all there. We're all feeling it. Something has to break through all this nonsense, man. And I really do believe it's collective accountability for every single one of us. When I'm starting to slip into that, it's one of y'all. Sherry does a fantastic job of this. Eric does a fantastic job of this. Jessica's been holding me accountable for this recently too, man. Kelly coming in here every day talking about her truth. Daniel, I haven't seen him in a while, but Daniel's one of the best out there. He always does in sort of a sarcastic manner, but he always drops truth as well, man. Just constantly holding people accountable, letting people know, hey, man, truth is truth, right? Socialism is a bad thing. We shouldn't have to be afraid to say that Marxism is probably not an ideology that we should want to take on. Anyways, let me hit some of these Facebook comments on the way out because y'all are the best. And I think I've just spewed all over everything too much here. Eric says, who's responding? Eric says, this is a great example of what I was saying earlier. Emotionalism twisted with fancy words to make it seem intellectual. Perfect example, actually. Hopefully he wasn't saying what I just said, but yeah. Sherry said, this is why you should be armed. Mob rule never brings about real justice or freedom. Yeah, I know. But for Eric's point, it feels real good, doesn't it? That's what's scary about it, man. That instant gratification. I think that's what's driving so much of this right now is they just haven't been given the alternate option. They don't know why they shouldn't choose something else. Jessica said she really put it out there like right there. Boom. I think she's talking about the councilwoman that just straight up said like, we want socialism. Like no ifs, ands, or buts. Just straight up letting you know. Yep, that's what she did. Eric said, one world unified is not, in solidarity is not an honest statement. It's the ravings of a lunatic. Yeah, right? Sherry said, our point of commonality should be freedom. Politics is what distorts that because individuals have given away their power. 100%, man. Let me read that more eloquently. Our point of commonality should be freedom. Politics is what distorts that because individuals have given away their power. Jerry said that this woman is a rabid collectivist. Collectivism is cancer for freedom. That's a better way to phrase that. It's any collectivism, right? It has a less harsh connotation to it, but it covers all of it. Collectivism, just all of it. Collectivism is anti-freedom. Love it. Eric says, OMG, this woman's hard to listen to. And Church said there's no legitimate candidates. You can choose a master for yourself, but you have no right to pick one for me. When you legitimize force against others because the people doing it are elected, then you legitimize force used on you. Stop the insanity. Stop giving people power to harm others in your name. And Eric said he was responding to what the crazy they were saying, not what I was saying. Hey, man. I'm going to have to sign off here today. And I know we usually have this like fancy little outro music or whatever. Actually, you want to see what it looks like? You want to see what we're working with over here? Let me show you. Boom! I don't know if I'd be showing people this or not, but look, this is what Shine does every day. Like you want to know what Shine's mind looks like? Okay, so you see my show notes. This is what Shine is messing around with somehow every single day here. I probably shouldn't be showing y'all this at all, but ending scene. Let's see what happens when I click that. Hey, all right. it's not. That's not what I was supposed to click. Whatever. All right. Now that we're at the ending scene slide. This is so terrible. Whatever. That's what Shine messes with every day. Now we're at the ending scene slide. Love y'all for real. I'll be signing off this morning. Y'all are the best. Seriously. Anything y'all need, anything at all, just need to talk to someone, whatever else. Holler me. Let me know.